Hey, how you doing? Brad here, Brad Kerner, June 24, 2026. And what's the title of this video, Brad? All right, let's say writing this memoir was the best decision of my life. And the reason I say that is because, first of all, I didn't write it to make money or anything else. I wrote it because I had this unbelievable story. I'm here in Thailand, and I used to lay in my bed thinking about all the stuff that had occurred. And I thought, Brad, you got to write this. You got to write a book, man. You got to write a memoir. At least you document, at least when you're dead and gone. It's like Van Gogh, he did all those paintings and he sold, and I've sold no books. I finished this book, published it in 2021. I was on Amazon and I don't want to get into all that. But when you make a decision to write a memoir, and you've never written a book, you wouldn't believe it was just fringe benefits. In other words, you don't know what's going to happen. And, you go online and you Google, how do you write a book, memoir. And you use Microsoft Word to lay it out for the, print book and then ebook. And you learn all that stuff, the technical stuff. And, for instance, they say right at the beginning of the book, you have to have a quote, etc. And the formatting, and it's difficult. I searched 1,000 times, man, thousands of times. And so the quote that I came up with for part one is Confucius: those who think they can and those who think they can't are both usually right. Because I did all this stuff. I mean, I was in movies with Van Damme and Joffrey Lewis, and I had covers of these magazines. I was Larry Flint's, he was my best customer. I was shooting Asian Fever and I was shooting Oriental Dolls in New York. I did everything in Thailand. And I never thought, when the book starts out, I'm a stockbroker. And I kept getting fired because I was a drunk and a jerk and I was lousy at my job, put it that way. And I write all about it. So write this book. And you got to teach yourself first the formatting, and then, for instance, a quote. And the other quote I like that I found is Picasso, and he says, "I begin with an idea, and then it becomes something else." Which the way I looked at that, it sounds like it's the art takes on a life of its own. In other words, you start it, but then all of a sudden it does its own thing. You don't have no plan. How can you plan if you've never written a book? You can't plan, the very last chapter in the book, chapter 174, and the last chapter of part two is I'm going to miss you memoir. And I'm going to put that up after this video. I'll just put the audiobook up, the audio. And, but anyway, so I start writing it and it just, first of all, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with writing the actual book. I start out, my first chapter is called Down and Out in Chicago, and I was living in a unheated garage in a suburb of Chicago. And it was a friend of the family, my parents' friend, and I asked him if I could stay at his house. I was broke and, didn't have a place to live. And he said, sure. And he let me stay in his garage in the dead of winter, unheated garage. So I'd wake up in the morning and rub my fingers through my frozen hair. Anyway, chapter one. And I got into it. I get into the whole thing. Writing, and all this stuff. Later, when the book was finished and everything, it took like 3 years to write. The marketing of it, I have no interest in it. I'm just no good at it. The writing part, putting the book together, formatting it, getting it done, and I did everything myself. And the other term I would use is fringe benefits, because all of a sudden, all these things happen that are so fantastic, but you could never, you don't know. You've never written a book before. It's the same as acting. When I was acting in movies in Hong Kong, and my book's called "My Life as an Expat" because I've been an expat for 40 years, and even doing the movies, you don't know. I'd never done any. I did a few parts in commercials and stuff, and studied a little acting in New York, um, and then I'm in Hong Kong, and I'm a featured actor in movie after movie, and I loved it. But you don't know you're going to love it. I mean, some people love certain kind of work, and some people are good at certain things. I'm terrible at organization. I have zero organizational skills. I'm terrible at marketing, for instance. Now, the one thing I had was charisma. I had charisma. And I've got a chapter in the book. I remember I was talking to a friend in Bangkok. In fact, there's stories about him because he ended up, he went to Vanderbilt. He was educated, and we're in Bangkok. And I remember he told, I better not, what's that drug that methadone, baloney. I don't want to get kicked off, but anyway, he sent me to get some of that stuff. And his story was weird, but one day we were sitting in a bar, and I wasn't drinking yet. I had 13 years clean and sober after I left Chicago. And he says, "Brad, you're the best salesman I've ever met." And I think what he was talking about was charisma, because every door opened. I never sold myself. I never, like, I'm great. I can do it. I just said, "Hey, how you doing?" Door open, done deal. You're booked. You're cast in this part or whatever. I turned down a part for Jackie Chan. I went to the casting in Hong Kong, and the director's got the thing on. It was nighttime, and I was there alone. And he says, "Do something." So I turn around and I say, "Oh, God." And he goes, "You're hired." So I got hired to do Jackie Chan's movie, but my parents were going to visit me in Hong Kong, and I had already turned them down once because I got job after job after job. And the other thing is, I was a stockbroker, and I had suits with me, Brooks Brothers suits, and handmade suits from Hong Kong. I looked great, man. I mean, I looked the part. So I'd go to these castings for, they need a guy in a suit for these motel ads and stuff. I got everyone, So, but so the Jackie Chan thing, I had already turned my parents down once because I was busy and something came up. So the second time we arranged the hotel, all this stuff, I get hired for that Jackie Chan movie. So I turned it down. Biggest mistake. It's my biggest regret in my life that's one of them, is turning down Jackie Chan, because he became super famous afterwards in the United States and stuff. But this is Hong Kong. And I bumped into my buddy. A bunch of us used to have parts in movies. I always got the featured role, the speaking role. And they were like in the background doing this and this. So I said, "Hey, how was that movie?" And he goes, "Yeah, we shot in Morocco, and I broke my leg during the filming." I said, "You shot where? Where? You shot in Morocco?" I turned down Jackie Chan, shot in Morocco. But anyway, I had charisma, and every single time I knocked on a door, "Come on in." Okay. And it's just weird. It's time that's gone, long gone, So that magic is gone. So anyway, here I am. It does take on a life of its own, like Picasso said. I begin with an idea, and it takes on a life, and it becomes something else. The original quote is, but so I fell in love with the whole deal with writing my memoir. I fell in love with it. And I think I wrote a great book. And it doesn't matter that I didn't sell I'm on Amazon. I did no marketing. I put it on LinkedIn all over the place, and it just didn't work. Now I've talked to people that know that biz, and they say you got to put it in front of people who want to read about expats or whatever. So the other thing is, one of the fringe benefits of writing a memoir, you get to, look at what you did, and you get to, I researched like what happened to this actor, and he happened to be on the 23rd floor Mandarin Oriental in Hong Kong, and he jumped, and famous movie star, and we had a role together. What happened with, Liberace died soon after I worked with him in New York, and the guy who fired me at Dean Witter, I found out he became so famous in that industry. But anyway, it's all in the book. And, but all these things happen. And, when they wrapped the Pont Neuf Bridge, remember those artists? It's in the book, the names. I'm 72. Stuff doesn't come to mind right away. But, they were wrapping Pont Neuf Bridge with material. Remember those artists who used to wrap buildings and stuff like that? And they were wrapping it. And I'm going, huh? And I roller skated all over Paris. I roller skated down and I go, wow. And then, I researched it, and let's see if I can find it. I researched it. There it is. Let's see. I was on my skates one morning in Paris in 1985, and I happened to be skating by the Pont Neuf Bridge. And I noticed these guys in little boats on the River Seine wrapping the bridge in a beautiful, Christo and John Claude. And here's a photo. No, I didn't take these. So there's a couple of 200 photos in this book. Can you imagine? I'm watching them wrap that thing. This is what I mean about being, living overseas, man. And the key to my living overseas, I could never have done it if I didn't start modeling in Chicago. It was all 1,000,000 to 1. As a stockbroker, you could go for 2 weeks. And go back home and work. But I started modeling in Chicago, and then I went to book that flight to St. Martin, just for a week to St. Martin, like I had done the year prior. And it was more expensive than the year prior. And I saw a pamphlet, and it said Ski Innsbruck. Boom, I'm in Innsbruck. It changed my life. One little thing. And I ended up living overseas. I'm still overseas. I've had 2 kids over here. When you read about how I treated poor Amy, I put her on an airplane at 8 years old in Bangkok all by herself, and my mom would pick her up in Chicago. But it was an emergency thing, and you got to read these stories. You got to read the book. It's fantastic. And there's an audiobook, which is great if you don't feel like reading a book. Plus, there's 200 pictures in the book. So when I did it, the song, I did it my way. And I also got the, boy, that's a great shot. I was shooting fashion too. And that's the other thing. That's a fashion shoot I did. I didn't just shoot like for Larry Flint and stuff. But that's the other thing is this book was tough to lay out because, I've got 200 full-page color images. And here's the cool thing. I typed out the letters because you might not be able to read the chicken scratch, but I put the actual letters. My parents saved all my letters. You can see this Golden Triangle Photo and Design. I started a company in Bangkok, and it's so fascinating, but I'm getting so dark here. Why? Something's happening. Oh, I know. Because I put this white page there. So the 200 pictures, they make it what it is, man. Picture, another thing I heard is pictures speak 1,000 words. That's nonsense. Pictures don't speak. A word is a word, a picture's a picture. Picture puts you in my shoes at a certain place in time. Look, there I'm in. That's an ad for Regent Hotel. Is that 1,000 words? No. You can't describe that. There I am in another ad. Those are the kind of jobs I was getting. My parents came to visit me in Hong Kong, the Jackie Chan story, right? I had to turn him down. And they said, Brad, your photos all over the airport. Charisma, man. I had a good look. I had the suits. Any door opened. There's my Screen Actors Guild, which I got when I was living in New York City, working with Liberace, working with Clapton. I mean, boom, 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 boom. So, do you think I want to not tell that story? Here's me working with Liberace, man. There we are, pushing the sleigh, dude. There's me in the back. And charisma, man. There's me and Liberace. And I had just gotten that job. I was roller skating past Rockefeller Center, and I roller skated on in. I said, "You need any help?" And they said, "You're hired, skate guard." And a few days later, my boss comes up and said, "Liberace's going to do a show here today. You're going to be in the show." And then after the show, he comes running up. He said, "Liberace wants to thank you personally." Charisma. And so I went in Rockefeller Center and had lunch with those guys, and there's me and Krenna. And the pictures make this book what it is. And I can't say enough about it. I can't show you these pictures. I've shown you this, the cover of Oriental Dolls that really made my career. I say better not. There's me at a party in Bangkok with my fourth wife, Nicaraguan, who was on the cover of Thai Penthouse magazine. And, it just is what it is. I like that statement. It is what it is. Shot this. So after my third wife, my Thai wife, left me, I was heartbroken. So I decided to jump on a plane and go to Miami, and I'd shoot, models they call Z cards. Shoot. Like, here's an example. I meet this girl on the beach in South Beach. I live right near Versace. And there she is. And I shot her Z card, her composite card, as a model. And then, lo and behold, see, I was shooting these. There's a model I shot, and I'd get $1,000. And then I did a kickback of $500 to this guy that hired me. And then there's Miriam, Nicaraguan wife, cover of Penthouse magazine, which I shot. So let the story die with me? I don't think so. I'm glad I didn't, put it that way. And this is junk, so you're gonna have to put up with it. There's my name, Brad Kerner. And sneaking her back in the United States over the Rio Grande and Matamoros and Brownsville, Texas. I mean, the stories are just off the charts. And there's me and Miriam in Chicago after getting her through Mexico. So, and then part 2, which I'm not publishing yet. I'll do part 1 first. This was published. These were published on Amazon until they booted me off. But you can see, there I am in jail. And the quote there would be doing this, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But that's part 2. That was published on Amazon. But anyway, I'm going to do 1 first, and this is a little bit harder. There's me. Can you imagine putting this thing together? I got these pictures. I'm at these red shirt protests. That's me. And I started drinking again. So, I was drunk going to these protests, took these pictures, got stopped by the Army, and they took my memory card. Look at that. The whole place is blowing up. They took my memory card, but I got it back, believe it or not. They gave me a phone number. The Army stopped me. He made me sleep with, in the street on this bench. They said, "You're not going anywhere. You're staying here." And he took the memory card. All those stories are in the book. Now, people write books, but they told me don't go up there because they're shooting from this other building, like this. Army shooting these red shirts who were supporting the other Prime Minister, Thaksin Shinawatra. But anyway, that's 20-minute video. I can't talk anymore. So take care and go to bradsmemoir.com. And this book will be all over the place pretty soon. It's on Google Play Books, but I'm putting the new version up with the new name. Okay, take care.